Whenever you're ready. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. This is the Planning Committee, and I've got an echo.
It's me. The mute button's not working on my laptop. So
Hang on a minute.
It's just speakers. Turn your sound up.
Hello.
Okay.
Is that better? Yeah, that's better. Thank you. Right, sorry, this is the planning meeting from Town Council. My name's Steve Tan. I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. As ever, we make our meetings available to as many people as possible. So we use a hybrid setup here in the chamber and online via Zoom. Any panelists on Zoom, please use your electronic raise hand, clicking on the participants button at the bottom of your screen. Also, for attendees on Zoom, please post questions to the Q&A board. Attendees' names will become visible on the questions board for the record as your question is answered. Catherine and Jane will clerk tonight, and Hannah will manage the questions board and the participant settings. Meeting is being recorded for minuting purposes, and the recording will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. Any questions, comments, information from anybody? No? Great. Okay. Item 3 then. Agree the apologies of absence received. We got Philip and Lisa. Is that right? So Philip and Lisa, we need to vote on that. Thank you, Fiona. Vote on that, Mark? Yeah. Yep, good, thank you. Item 5, to agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 15th of February 2004. Someone propose that? Thank you, Andy. Thanks, Fiona. It's great. Pass those down to. Sorry, Jane, am I? Doing your job for you. Item number 6, to consider the major plan applications received. Oh, declarations of interest. Got that. Sorry, any declaration of interest, there must be, otherwise. Fiona.
Item 43590 Weymouth Road is owned by my landlord, so I will not comment as always.
Right, thank you. Andy?
All have to declare an interest in 437.
The roundabout.
No, that's the pencil sharpener.
Oh yes, yeah, we do. Jane, why is that? Because we use them all.
I don't think it's an actual declaration of interest. I think in the interest of transparency, it is a company that we use to do work for us, but it's not a prejudicial or pecuniary interest, in my view.
Okay.
It's noted for the record that we use them. Mark?
4304 Eastleigh Close. The next door neighbour is a close family member.
Right. Okay. And I think, do we all have to declare an interest in the roundabout?
Well, the Marston Road roundabout application is on the list, but given that it went to Somerset's planning committee yesterday and was issued a decision, actually there's no point in us discussing it now, so I would say it's probably best to just take that one off the list anyway.
That particular horse is bolted. Excellent. Right, okay. Sorry, I got out of order there. So back to item 6, consider major planning applications received. Over to Catherine.
Thank you. Give me a minute. Right, can we see that? Let me just make it full screen. There's so many pop-ups on Zoom. Okay, so the first one we are discussing tonight is 429, which is land at 377398 Castle Street, Frome, and it is a erection of a 2-story 3-bedroom dwelling and garden studio with alteration and rebuilding of the boundary stone wall. So it's currently a derelict piece of land on Castle Street next to the Lamond Fountain, which is listed. It used to be a row of 3 or 4 terrace houses that were demolished in the 70s, I think, due to becoming unsafe, and the land's been derelict ever since. It was Somerset land, they've just sold it into private use, who have now put in a planning application. So this is the proposal, the proposed ground floor plan. The applicants have tried to keep to the original footprint of the 3 of the 4 terraces. So as you can see, it's kitchen, diner, bedroom, downstairs, boot room, utility. Then second floor is bedrooms, bathrooms, just general family house layout with a stair core, and then proposed roof plan. And then the plans in more detail. This is the elevation fronting onto Castle Street. So as you can see, it's 3 apexes facing into the street, using the same rubble walling that's already in existence, building up the front facade. And you can see that it's not adjoining the Lamb and Fountain, but it is very close to the structure. This is the proposed rear elevation. You can't see from this elevation, but the land does slope really steeply down onto Sun Street, I think below. Elevation from the side, so this is looking towards the Lamb and Fountain. And then this is the other side looking away down the hill to the houses. Section from the front. Section from the rear. Section from the side. And to answer your question, Fiona, it is a 2-story house, but with a double height space at the top. There isn't accommodation, they've just got really high ceilings. They've got some storage space, otherwise known as a loft. And then this is some of the images in context, which give a better idea of materiality, and I think give a better idea of how it will sit in the land. So I'll just open it up, because there were so many images I couldn't get them all in the PowerPoint. And it's not sure, hang on, let me just...
What was there before? It was derelict
It's
for
just derelict land.
some time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know this has been
I think it
spoken about.
has been used for some community growing, though.
Now, the land was, if you look at it now, there was a terrace of houses that ran where that front wall is, where the Mini is, 3 or 4 houses, I can't remember how many. And then since the last 50 years, when Trinity became a conservation area, they were all just pushed over. So the land is completely full of brick running to the wall at the back, which runs along Sun Street. It's going to be a very difficult site to develop, but I'll come on to that. But it was just allowed to be barren for years. There was a suggestion that the community would buy it as a wildlife refuge or whatever, which is what it was being used as. But it came up for open auction, and the applicant is the only person who bid and bought it. No, the Lamb and Fountain is completely separate. But I'll come on to that.
Right. Thank you, Catherine. Any questions, comments from people? Start at Andy.
2 things jump to mind. One is that although they talk about it fronting onto the street, that's pretty much a solid wall elevation, isn't it? And it's a big blank wall.
Yeah.
It's quite a narrow street.
On a very narrow street, so it feels like it's going to be quite an imposing mass of stone, albeit, in the right context. The other thing is it appears only to have 1 off-street car parking space, which is just going to add to the already existing parking problems.
So Somerset Highways have actually now objected to it based on it not having enough visibility display and it not having adequate parking. They said ordinarily it would pass due to its location on the parking, but as it's town centre, but there's just nowhere else for visitors or delivery, or it'll just, if they have anyone other than that 1 car, there's just nowhere for them to go.
Yeah, and I mean, the other piece of it is how they actually managed to construct something with the only access being on that street. It's the the build plan must be a nightmare.
Mark, you probably know this area very, very well, don't you?
Yeah, I know the site very well. Since the applicant bought it a couple of years ago, he's made good efforts about keeping in touch with me. And on the 13th of December, which was a significant date in other ways, Catherine and I went to an exhibition that he hosted at Rise, where all the plans are available. His architect was available, and we discussed it with them. The Civic Society attended, and as did other neighbours. I still have big concerns over the site. It's a very difficult site, not least because of all the rubble that's underneath it. There's a huge retaining wall at the back that goes on to Sun Street. I think we'd have to be sure of the integrity of that before anything went ahead. I don't know how much structural survey has been done by engineers. And to that extent, I've spent too much time of my life under the Lammen Fountain, not because of drinking, but because of my work with the Froome Tunnels project. We investigated all the underneath of that and found the ice house and various other things. This is the right hand looking up of Castle Street, abuts there. There's an awful lot going on underground under the Lammen Fountain, which needs to be considered, because I think they could find themselves going into a hole if they're not careful.
Do you think the tunnels actually run under this plot?
It's not tunnels as such, but in a very, very, very extensive set of cellars. I mean, Jane's been under there, and on a tunnels tour, and the ice house, the Elizabethan ice house that we found under there. I am concerned that looking to the right of that it won't necessarily damage it, but they may find some voids under there which they don't know about just yet. So that needs a lot of work to be done. As I say, all the rubble from the previous houses was pushed all the way down to Sun Street. So that wall is taking a lot of pressure at the moment. I share the concerns about the car. I don't see how even that Mini can come in and out of there without a 25-point turn. It's very, very difficult to get in there, or to get out of there probably, and it'll be blind to come out. But I think I like the design. I like what they're trying to do there. I think they just have to be really, really wary about what they may find when they're trying to build it. And I support in some way the Civic Society's concerns about conservation area, and a conservation officer really needs to look at this.
Yeah, absolutely. Fiona, do you want to add anything?
Difficult, because all the things I agree with you. I like the designs. I like the ambition of it. I think it looks beautiful. And you know what Mark is talking about is not my area of expertise, but I will take his word for it that retaining walls, rubble tunnels need to be investigated. I find it quite interesting that it doesn't seem to be, do we know that sort of there's lots of like public supports, but we're not really sure that many of them live nearby. It feels like it's going to be very intrusive, especially onto obviously there's a pub on one side, but there's a house on the other side. We don't know whether they've commented.
No addresses on, well, you can't see people's addresses on.
Yeah.
There's houses opposite it, and because it's where the road pinches, so they will.
Yeah.
It is a narrow road. They'll be looking straight onto that wall.
It's shading as well. Surely it'll cast a shadow, won't it, over the houses on the other side of the street, because that's south, like it faces south, right?
Maybe. Let me get up a map.
I think whether it casts a shadow or not, which I think it probably will, even so, it is because of how close it is in width, and then the height of it is, I think, overbearing is the word I would use on that elevator, because there's not even a or there's a false window there, but it needs something to break that elevation up, or I think, as Catherine suggested, or somebody suggested, move it back within the plot to at least give it some.
Civic Society, who suggested it. Civic Society had similar concerns to Mark, and they suggested moving it back to the middle of the plot and having a front for parking, so you could come in and go round, I think, was their suggestion.
Why do
It
we
would
know?
make the access much easier, wouldn't it,
Yeah.
if it was back in the plot?
Do we know why they've put it right at the front? Are there issues with the landscape or anything?
No, I think it's because the original wall for the original cottages is at the front, so it's an architectural decision. And I also imagine it's much flatter at the top and thus easier to build because it does slope down really quite steeply towards Sun Street.
Yeah.
I think that might have worked because at the time when the original cottages were there sitting on that line, the houses on the other side of the road wouldn't have been.
Yeah.
And I think that's why now
People
it's,
weren't driving cars.
and people weren't driving cars up and down or as many vehicles. And if you did that, I know they want to retain the original part of the wall there, but it would give you the opportunity to open it up and make more of the visibility display potentially. I don't know whether highways would be happy with it or not, but it would give you the possibility. I don't know whether or not there'd be any room to turn around because it looks like at the moment as it stands you'd have to drive in and reverse out or vice versa, and that's just not safe.
I mean, given where it is, I think I agree with the Civic Society that it really needs the conservation officer to do a full sort of survey, whatever they do on this plot, doesn't it, really? And there's an awful lot for them to take, for the conservation area officer to comment on, really, isn't there?
Yeah, and I think Mark was talking about the history and the ice house and so on, and Lamb and Fountain. So I think maybe any investigations need to go further than the plot itself.
Yeah.
Because, like I say, you don't know what's under there, and I think because of the listed status of the Lamb and Fountain and all the bits associated with it, anything that's done on that site could potentially impact on that. So
Is Lamb and Fountain listed grade 2? What is it listed?
Grade 2, I think.
yeah,
I guess the whole area is, it's all conservation area, isn't it?
it's all
Conservation area, but
yes.
the Lamb and Fountain's listed.
Mm.
It's pertinent that a couple of years ago, those of us with long memories will remember that on the core for sites that Mendip tried to do for social housing, this was on the list.
Yeah, I do.
But it was number 10 out of 10 as economically viable because of the work that's underneath it. And so that's why Mendip put it up for sale. It was going to be very, very difficult to develop, especially with what they wanted to put on it. It may be that the house is so far to the front because all that stuff has been pushed to the back, and that where it gets more and more, and it gets more and more slopey, and more and more difficult. That's probably the flattest. That is the flattest bit of the plot, which is probably why that's the easiest bit to develop. Sorry,
Essentially, it's the footprint.
it's the footings of the old, exactly, of the old buildings, which have now been pushed down into the garden, and so that's, I guess, that's the most economical way to do it.
Any other comments from anyone before we wrap it up?
I was just going to say, I think we're about ready to propose an objection and just tidy up the wording around that.
I mean, the design is quite interesting, isn't it?
High quality.
Admire their ambition. It's
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure about the big wall, but the actual design itself is interesting.
Could use some
It is an empty
materials.
plot, but there are quite a few things that need to be ironed out first. Obviously, highways. I think the overbearing, the conservation, and the Lamb and Fountain are the sort of the key ones. You know how it all affects that, but the conservation officer should pick up on all of that, really.
And also that the building doesn't affect the business of the Lamb and Fountain. I think Lamb and Fountain is quite a key cornerstone Froome, business. And I think they would have to be very sensitive in how that it doesn't impact their business.
I don't know how they're going to get construction equipment and materials on site, but I'm sure they've come up with a plan on that.
Use a caravan.
Yeah, I mean, as Amy said, I think we're objecting on the access and
Access
display, yeah, the overbearing visibility display, overbearing, and the potential impact on the Lambeth Fountain and the conservation area.
I think you're right. I'm loath to object.
Exactly.
Is there a way that we can positively object? I think we've come across this before, haven't we? Where, you know,
We support the principle of the development. We really like the house, but we are concerned. We like the design of the house, but we're concerned it's a bit overbearing and it's got the safety aspect.
support the principle of the house being developed where it is, but we have grave reservations about some of the things as designed at the moment.
Yes.
But object to the current design and the current plans, but support that that site is developed and yeah.
Yeah. One of you's got to vote on it. It's a beautiful fence, Fiona.
It's just where it is. It's all down to conservation, isn't it?
Do you want us to vote on that one?
Yeah. So, just for clarity's sake, so we're not against the concept of building on the plot, but there are various questions that need to be answered, which we'll send back, and hopefully the conservation officer can answer those questions. Does that make sense? Yeah.
That's unanimous. I wasn't quite sure who
Proposed. I'll propose.
you proposed. Fiona seconded, and then that was unanimous. Thank you.
Sorry, you can. Oh, overbearing wall. Remember what the thing was?
So animal, if you-
Yeah, just couldn't. If I don't write it down, I won't remember it. And you'll have loads of letters of support because I just put no objection. Okay, the next one is 90 Weymouth Road, 435, and it's the installation of an AC unit. We've seen this previously where the AC unit was situated on the other side of their entrance, which meant it was sat next door to the next door houses, front door and living room. At the time, we said we'd have no objection if they moved it, and they have now moved it. So it's sat, as you can see, sat on the other side. These are the proposed plans for it. Proposed elevation. So it should have minimum or a more minimum impact on the neighbours. The Civil Society have said there really should be a acoustic thing with it.
What's been changed since the last time we saw this when we thought it was intrusive on the neighbour?
The position of it. So before, you see where my mouse is? Before it was on the other side of the bay window. So it was sat next to the next door house. This is front door.
So it's moved into their car park or next to their car park rather than, yeah, that's much better.
Anyone any
Yeah,
problems with that?
no problem with that. Happy to withdraw our objection on the basis that they've complied with what we wanted.
Yep.
Brilliant. Someone propose that.
Propose that. Andy propose.
So that was proposed by Andy, seconded by Mark, and Fiona is not voting, so abstained, so that's a majority.
Yeah.
So that's withdrawing previous objection. Okay. And the last one is number 437. It's the old fire station, Christchurch Street West, and it's an internally illuminated pencil sharpener sign situated above the door on the brickwork. It's the old fire station. That is the location and block plan. That is the elevation of it, of the building, and then this is the signage details and the photo of the sign in situ. this is a retrospective application simply because the applicants weren't aware that you can't have an internally illuminated sign on a listed building. The signs are only illuminated, I think, early morning and like dusk for a couple of hours. A couple of hours each day. I don't think it's got a massive impact on the conservation area or indeed on the building itself. I think it looks quite smart. I don't think having the light on is any different to it not being to the sign.
I like it.
Does anyone not like it? Has anyone got a problem with it?
No, I
Looks quite
almost
cool.
feel a bit guilty because I think I flagged up to them when I first saw it come on that they
your
needed the planning application to go in for it. But I think it's a nice addition to a commercial frontage. I've no problem with it.
It was also, I spoke to him, it was also a genuine mistake in terms of not, getting retrospective. This wasn't a sort of, yeah, and I can understand. Yeah, no, they just didn't know.
It's a lot nicer than other signs we've got in the
Yeah,
So I can think of a few.
it's
Yeah.
quite cool.
Any other comments?
When they're proposing to light it, because it wasn't lit when I walked past it half an hour ago, are they turning it off at night? Or
Yeah, it's in.
I think until the applications agreed, they agreed not to have it illuminated, Mark.
So it shouldn't be on at the moment, and I think it's just for 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours of an evening. But I can double check. It is in the
yeah, fine.
statement. Let me just pull it up.
Good. Someone proposed, no objection? Thank you, Fiona. Seconded by Andy.
I missed again who proposed it. Sorry.
No, no.
Fiona proposed it, you seconded it, and that's unanimous. Thank you.
We're over here, Jane.
All right, let me just.
Any more?
Do we need to look at that one at Oakfield Road? Because
Is that the acorn?
Oh, yeah, little acorns. Little acorns.
436.
I think it's too big. I know it's for a.
Have we got the...
Can we have a look?
Yeah, of course you can.
Which number is this one on our list? 436.
The Civic Society are objecting. Oh, and there's now a comment from Councillor Dunk. Let me just get there. Sorry, let me just change this screen sharing. So this is the proposal. As you can see, it is massive. It's just a shed, basically. This is the
It's where it sits, isn't it, in relation to the other houses?
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's filling this corner, and they do, because I've had a nosy on Google Maps, they do already park their camper van there. But I just think the camper van goes in and out. Like, you're not always looking. I just think it's so big and so solid that number 3 especially are going to be really impacted by it.
Is it just for
45-degree
parking?
rule kicks in.
Is it just for parking?
Yeah. It's essentially a garage. It's just massive. Yeah.
It's going to be quite high, though, isn't it? It's like 1.5 stories.
It's more than that because it's 3.3 meters, and then it's got an apex, so it's probably more like almost 4 meters tall.
Is there any plans showing the elevations of it, excuse me, in relation to the existing wall that's there so that you can get a better impression of what impact? That's it. So it might be useful to see that
Yeah.
in relation to the existing boundaries, like a cross section, so that you can really properly assess if it will have an impact on the neighbouring properties.
Especially their fences, and you've got to assume their fences are going to be like 6 foot, 2 metre fences, and this is going to stick way over the top, isn't it? Yeah.
Michael Dunk said he might want to refer it to planning committee because of the size of it.
Yeah, that's very common.
I think, yeah, it's just, I don't know how big a camper van is, but I just feel like it's too big for a garage.
Fairness, they are talking about it as a camper van storage garage, isn't it? Which is going to drive the height up as well as the width.
I think we need more info on the impact to the neighbouring properties, don't we, before we can make a decision, really. That would be a fair assessment? Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Michael Dunk's asking for it to go to the planning board or committee, it would be useful for them to be able to see that as well. So
I don't suppose there's a Google Street View or anything that goes that far back,
Gardens,
is there?
isn't it?
You can only see it from the bird's eye view. You can't, it doesn't go down the little road.
So would we object to that then? Or
I
just request more info?
I think you say, you know, we're minded to object, but we would like some clarity about the impact it's going to have on the neighbours. And once you've seen that information, you'll
Make a firm decision.
yeah.
Everyone happy with that? Yeah.
So you're minded to object.
Minded to object, subject to further information about the impact on neighbours.
Okay.
Someone propose that, please? Thank you. Andy,
You can have your pen back.
seconded by
Steve,
me.
and that's unanimous. Thank you.
Are there any other ones that you want to talk about before we end the... I think it's just trees.
Anything else? Great, okay. Thank you, everybody. Next planning, oh, hang on, no, we have to vote on the rest that,
Oh, Steve, get it together.
yeah, I know, shocking, isn't it? Thank you, Andy, proposing that.
So that's proposed by Andy, seconded by Steve, and that is unanimous. Thank you.
Right, as I were. Next planning meeting is on the 28th of March, 2024. Look forward to seeing you all then. Thank you. Good night.